The rain drummed against my apartment window like impatient fingers, matching the nervous tapping of my own against my phone screen. The small one-bedroom apartment that had been my sanctuary for the past year felt suddenly claustrophobic, the walls closing in with each passing minute. The scent of instant coffee lingered in the air, mixed with the faint smell of damp laundry I'd hung to dry earlier that morning. Beyond the rattling window, Chicago's skyline glittered through the downpour, lights blurred into watery smears against the night sky. "Stupid, stupid, stupid," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the storm. The text message glowed on my screen, sent 20 minutes ago to a number I should never have had in my contacts. The moment I'd hit send, regret had crashed through me like a physical wave. "Miss me yet? Dinner at your place was unforgettable. Maybe next time I'll bring dessert. Emma." It had been a joke. A stupid, reckless joke, born from 2 glasses of cheap wine and Tina's insistence that I needed to put myself out there after the disaster with Ryan. We'd found the number in my phone, saved under Do Not Contact, a warning to myself I'd failed to heed. "He probably won't even see it," Tina had said, laughing as she'd practically forced the phone from my hands after I'd typed the message. "These types have people managing their messages. Besides, he's probably forgotten all about you." But I hadn't forgotten him. How could I? Luca Valenti wasn't a man you forgot. I'd only met him once, serving drinks at an upscale charity gala where I'd picked up an extra shift to make rent. He hadn't said much, hadn't needed to. Even in a room full of Chicago's elite, he'd commanded attention with nothing but his presence. Dark eyes that missed nothing, a tailored suit that probably cost more than my annual salary, the subtle nod that sent men twice my size scurrying to do his bidding. Everyone knew who he was, even if they pretended not to notice. The whispers followed him. Luca Valenti, the youngest head of the Valenti crime family. Ruthless, dangerous, untouchable. And now I'd sent him a flirty text as a joke. Thunder rolled outside as I paced the worn carpet of my living room. 21 minutes now. I'd tried calling Tina 3 times, but she wasn't answering, probably passed out after dropping me home and heading to another bar. I was alone with my mistake. The harsh buzz of my phone made me jump, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Unknown number. I stared at it, frozen, until it stopped. 3 seconds later, it started again. With trembling fingers, I swiped to answer. Hello? Silence. Just the sound of rainfall and what might have been breathing. Hello? I tried again, my voice steadier. "Open your door, Emma." The voice sent ice through my veins. Smooth, controlled, with the slightest trace of an accent I couldn't place. I'd only heard it once before, thanking me for a drink I'd served him, but I recognized it instantly. "What? Mr. Valenti, I'm so sorry about that text, my friend. I'm outside your door. Open it." The line went dead. For a moment, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. How did he know where I lived? Why was he here? My apartment was in a nondescript building, in a neighborhood that was neither good nor bad, the kind of place where people minded their business and didn't ask questions. The perfect place to disappear. Or so I'd thought. I moved to the door on unsteady legs, pressing my eye to the peephole before I could think better of it. He stood in the dimly lit hallway, alone, which surprised me. In my limited understanding of men like him, they never went anywhere without an entourage. His black coat was dotted with raindrops, his dark hair slightly damp. He wasn't looking at the door, but down at his phone, his sharp profile illuminated by the screen's glow. As if sensing my gaze, he looked up, directly at the peephole, and my breath caught. Those eyes, dark and unreadable, seemed to see right through the door, through me. I could pretend I wasn't home. I could call the police. I unlatched the chain and opened the door before I could talk myself out of it. Whatever was coming, prolonging it, wouldn't help. "Mr. Valenti," I said, hating how my voice wavered. "I can explain." He didn't speak, simply stepped forward, forcing me to back into my own apartment. The scent of expensive cologne and rain filled the small space as he closed the door behind him with a soft click that felt somehow more threatening than a slam would have. "You shouldn't open your door without checking who it is first," he said, his voice deceptively gentle as his gaze swept over my apartment. taking in every detail with an efficiency that made me feel utterly exposed. Especially in this neighborhood. I did check, I said, surprising myself with the defiance in my tone. I saw it was you. A hint of amusement flickered across his face. There and gone so quickly I might have imagined it. And yet you still opened it. Interesting. He shrugged off his coat, hanging it on the hook by the door as if he'd been here 100 times before. As if he belonged here. Underneath, he wore a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly. A silver watch glinting at his wrist as he ran a hand through his damp hair. "Sit," he said, nodding toward my threadbare couch. I remained standing, my arms crossed over my chest, suddenly aware I was wearing only a faded Northwestern University t-shirt and sleep shorts. I'd rather not. His eyes darkened. "Emma," he said, my name like a warning on his tongue. "Sit. Please." The please felt like an afterthought, but I found myself moving to the couch anyway, perching on the edge of it. He took the chair opposite me, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, studying me with an intensity that made my skin heat. "Your text," he said finally. "Explain." I swallowed hard, trying to organize my thoughts. It was a stupid joke. My friend Tina and I were drinking, and she dared me. "I didn't think you'd actually see it. Or remember me." "I remember everyone," he said simply, "especially those who catch my attention." The implication sent a jolt through me. "Look, I'm really sorry. It was inappropriate, and what intrigues me," he interrupted, "is why you have my number to begin with." I blinked, caught off guard by the question. You gave it to me, at the Riverside Foundation Gala last month. You said if I ever needed anything." It had seemed strange at the time, the way he'd slipped the business card into my hand after I'd served him a whiskey. The brief moment our fingers had touched. The intensity of his gaze. I'd told myself it meant nothing. Men like him were probably in the habit of collecting pretty girls' numbers, maintaining connections everywhere. I'd been foolish enough to save it, though I'd never intended to use it. "Ah." He nodded as if confirming something to himself. "And do you need something now, Emma?" The way he said my name made it sound like something precious, something owned. A shiver ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold rain still beating against my windows. "No. I told you. It was just a stupid joke. I never meant to actually contact you. And yet here we are." He glanced around my apartment again. "Living alone?" The question felt invasive, dangerous. "That's none of your business." In an instant, his expression changed, hardened. He moved so quickly I barely registered it. One moment sitting across from me, the next looming over me, one hand braced on the back of the couch, the other tilting my chin up to force me to meet his gaze. "Everything about you became my business the moment you sent that text," he said, his voice low, controlled. "Do you have any idea what could have happened if someone else had seen it? If someone had tracked this number to you?" I couldn't look away, couldn't breathe. I don't understand." "No, you don't." His thumb traced my jawline, the touch surprisingly gentle despite the steel in his voice. "Men like me have enemies, Emma. Men who wouldn't hesitate to use anything or anyone to get to me." He released me and stepped back, pulling his phone from his pocket. He tapped the screen a few times, then held it up. My heart stopped. On the screen was a photo of me and Tina, leaving my apartment building earlier that evening to head to the bar. We were laughing, unaware of being watched. "My security team has been monitoring you since the gala," he said, pocketing the phone again. "Standard procedure for anyone I give my personal number to. When your text came through, I was in a meeting 10 blocks from here. I came personally rather than sending someone because I needed to understand what prompted it." Horror and indignation warred within me. "You've been having me watched? That's stalking." "That's protection," he corrected, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Though clearly my men have been too discreet if you felt secure enough to play games with my contact information." Protection? The word hung between us, loaded with implications I wasn't sure I wanted to examine. "I don't need your protection. I don't need anything from you. It was a mistake to text you, and I'm sorry, but now I'd like you to leave." The smile that curved his lips held no humor. "It's not that simple anymore." "Why not?" I demanded, standing up, finding courage in my anger. What could you possibly want from me? His eyes traveled over me slowly, deliberately, leaving heat in their wake. Perhaps the same thing you suggested in your message. Dinner, dessert. My face flamed. That's not... I didn't mean... No? He stepped closer, and despite every instinct screaming at me to back away, I held my ground. Then what did you mean, Emma? Nothing. It was just words. Stupid words that meant nothing. Words always mean something. His hand came up to brush a strand of hair from my face, and I flinched. He froze, something dangerous flashing in his eyes. You're afraid of me. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Shouldn't I be? For a long moment he said nothing, just studied me with those impenetrable dark eyes. Then he stepped back, giving me space to breathe. Yes, he said finally. You should be. But not for the reasons you think. Before I could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening. We're out of time. What does that mean? Instead of answering, he moved to the window, peering out through the blinds. Pack a bag. Essentials only. You have 5 minutes. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. Excuse me? 4 minutes and 50 seconds, he replied, already pulling out his phone and typing rapidly. Move, Emma. I'm not going anywhere with you. This is insane. He looked up from his phone, his gaze locking with mine. The man who's been watching your friend Tina's apartment for the past week works for the Constantine family. They're rather upset with me at the moment, and it seems they've decided to send a message. Your text confirmed their suspicions that you're important to me. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? What message? The kind written in blood, he said bluntly. Yours, specifically. Now you can stay here and wait for them to kick down your door, or you can come with me. Your choice, but make it quickly. As if to punctuate his words, a car alarm went off somewhere down the street, followed by the distant wail of sirens. I didn't know if I believed him, if this wasn't some elaborate manipulation, but the deadly seriousness in his eyes made it difficult to dismiss his warning. My friend is already being picked up by my men, he said, checking his watch. 3 minutes, Emma. I hesitated for only a second longer before rushing to my bedroom. With shaking hands, I threw open my closet, grabbed my backpack, and started stuffing it with whatever I could grab. Underwear, t-shirts, jeans, my phone charger, the photograph of my parents from my nightstand. I changed quickly into jeans and a sweater, shoving my feet into sneakers. When I emerged 2 minutes later, Luca was by the door, phone to his ear, speaking rapidly in Italian. He looked up as I approached, his gaze sweeping over me and my hastily packed bag. He nodded once, apparently satisfied, and ended his call. Stay close to me, he said, opening the door and checking the hallway. Don't speak to anyone. Don't look at anyone. Just follow me. Heart pounding, I followed him out of my apartment, watching as he locked my door with a key I hadn't given him. Another question I didn't have time to ask. The hallway was empty, the building quiet, except for the distant sound of a television from one of the other apartments. We took the stairs rather than the elevator, descending quickly to the ground floor. Just before we reached the exit, Luca stopped abruptly, putting out an arm to keep me behind him. What is it? I whispered. Change of plans, he said, turning to guide me toward the back of the building instead. Service exit. We slipped out through a door that I'd never noticed before, emerging into a rain-soaked alley behind my building. A sleek black SUV with tinted windows was idling there, its engine a low purr in the night. A mountain of a man stepped out from the driver's side, nodding respectfully to Luca before opening the rear door. Luca's hand pressed against the small of my back, guiding me forward. Get in. I hesitated, the reality of what I was doing finally hitting me. I was about to get into a car with a man I barely knew, a man who by his own admission was involved in something dangerous enough to make me a target, a man who had apparently been having me watched for weeks. Emma, he said, his voice softening slightly as he sensed my reluctance. I give you my word. No harm will come to you while you're under my protection. And if I don't want your protection? If I walk away right now? His expression darkened. Then I can't guarantee what happens next. A threat or a warning? I couldn't tell. and I didn't have time to figure it out. The wail of sirens was getting closer, and there was an urgency in Luca's posture that hadn't been there before. I made my choice. I climbed into the SUV. Luca slid in beside me, the door closing with a solid thunk that felt like the final nail in whatever normal life I'd been living up until 20 minutes ago. As the car pulled away from the curb, I looked back at my apartment building, wondering if I'd ever see it again. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice small in the quiet interior of the vehicle. Luca's hand found mine in the darkness, his grip firm, possessive, somewhere safe. As the city lights blurred past the rain-streaked windows, I realized with a sinking feeling that my definition of safe and his might be worlds apart. One reckless text, sent as a joke, had changed everything. And I was now in the hands of one of the most dangerous men in Chicago. What had I done? The city dissolved into a blur of lights and rain as we sped through streets I barely recognized. I'd lived in Chicago for 3 years, but from the sleek interior of Luca's SUV, everything looked foreign. The driver, who Luca had addressed only as Marco, navigated through traffic with practiced precision, taking turns I wouldn't have chosen, doubling back occasionally in what I realized must be an evasive pattern. Luca hadn't released my hand. His thumb traced absent circles on my skin, the gesture almost soothing despite the circumstances. Neither of us had spoken since leaving my apartment. The silence stretched between us, filled only with the hum of the engine and the rhythmic sweep of windshield wipers. I stole glances at his profile, the sharp line of his jaw, the slight furrow between his brows as he checked his phone periodically with his free hand. In the dim light of the car, with rain casting shifting shadows across his features, he looked like something from a dream, or a nightmare. "Your friend is secure," he said finally, breaking the silence as he slipped his phone back into his jacket pocket. "She's being taken to a safe house separate from ours." "Safe house," I repeated, the word feeling strange on my tongue. "This is really happening, isn't it?" His dark eyes met mine. "I'm afraid so. And these people, the Constantines, they want to hurt me because they think I'm important to you." The idea seemed absurd. I'd served him a drink at a gala. We'd exchanged perhaps 20 words before tonight. Luca's grip on my hand tightened almost imperceptibly. They saw an opportunity and took it. The text was unfortunate timing, but why would they think I started, then stopped as realization dawned? "Your men, the ones who've been watching me." The Constantines saw them. A hint of approval flashed in his eyes. "Yes. Victor Constantine has been looking for leverage against me for months. My interest in you didn't go unnoticed." "Your interest?" I echoed, unable to keep the confusion from my voice. "I don't understand. Why me? You don't even know me." The car slowed, turning onto a private drive I didn't recognize. Through the rain-streaked windows, I could make out the silhouette of a large house set back from the road, surrounded by trees. High walls and an ornate gate suggested both wealth and a desire for privacy. "We're here," Luca said, ignoring my question as the gate swung open to admit us. "This is one of my properties. You'll be safe here." The SUV pulled to a stop beneath a covered entrance. Before I could reach for the door, Marco was there, opening it, his massive frame shielding us from the rain as he scanned the surroundings with practiced vigilance. Luca stepped out first, then extended his hand to help me. The contrast between his smooth palm and the calloused edges of his fingers sent an involuntary shiver through me. These were hands that had done things, hard things, violent things perhaps, yet his touch remained gentle as he guided me toward the entrance. The house was a modern fortress disguised as a luxury residence. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked what appeared to be a lake, though in the darkness I could only make out the distant shimmer of water. The interior was minimalist, all clean lines and expensive simplicity. Nothing looked lived in. "You don't actually live here, do you?" I asked, taking in the pristine space. "No," Luca admitted, shrugging off his suit jacket and loosening his tie. The casual gesture felt oddly intimate. "This is a contingency residence. Only a few trusted people know of its existence." Marco disappeared down a hallway with my backpack, leaving us alone in the vast living room. Without the buffer of another person, the air between Luca and me seemed charged, heavy with unasked questions. "You should eat something," he said, moving toward what I presumed was the kitchen. "It's been a stressful evening." I followed, unwilling to be left alone in this strange place. That's one way of putting it. The kitchen was all gleaming surfaces and state-of-the-art appliances that looked untouched. Luca opened the refrigerator, revealing it to be fully stocked. Someone maintains this place, I observed, keeping it ready. I maintain many such properties, he said, removing containers that appeared to contain prepared meals, necessity in my line of work. And what exactly is your line of work, Mr. Valenti? I asked, watching as he transferred food to plates with surprising domesticity, besides terrifying women by showing up at their doors in the middle of the night. His lips curved into what might have been a smile as he placed the plates in a microwave. Please call me Luca. And I think you know what I do. I did. Everyone in Chicago knew the Valenti name, though most were smart enough not to discuss it openly. Import-export business was the official story. The reality involved territories and protection rackets, gambling operations, and who knew what else. The kind of business conducted in back rooms with no paper trail. How long do I have to stay here? I asked instead of acknowledging his statement. He leaned against the counter, studying me with those intense eyes. Until I'm confident the threat has been neutralized. A few days, perhaps longer. I have a job, you know. A life. Had. He corrected, the gentleness in his tone doing nothing to soften the finality of the word. That life is gone, Emma. The moment the Constantines identified you as a person of interest, your old life ceased to exist. I'm sorry. The microwave beeped, but neither of us moved. His words hung in the air between us, devastating in their simplicity. You're sorry? I repeated, anger finally breaking through the shock that had carried me this far. You're sorry? You've been having me watched for weeks. You've made me a target in whatever game you're playing with these people. You've forced me to leave my home. And now you're telling me I can never go back, and all you have to say is you're sorry? I hadn't realized I'd been moving toward him until I was right in front of him, fists clenched at my sides, trembling with rage. Up close, I could see the faint shadow of stubble on his jaw, the impossible length of his eyelashes, the barely perceptible scar that cut through his right eyebrow. What would you have me say? He asked, his voice dangerously soft. The truth. Why me? What do you want from me? For a long moment, he just looked at me, something unreadable flickering in his dark eyes. Then he reached out, his hand coming to rest on the side of my neck, thumb brushing my pulse point. The touch was light, but I felt trapped nonetheless, caught in the gravity of his presence. You remind me of someone I lost, he said finally. The resemblance. It caught me off guard that night at the gala. I wanted to understand it better. I swallowed, his thumb tracking the movement. Who? My sister, he said, the words clearly costing him something to speak aloud. Sophia. She died 5 years ago. The admission stunned me into silence. Of all the answers I'd imagined, this hadn't been one of them. The pain in his eyes looked genuine, a crack in the armor of control he wore so effortlessly. I'm sorry, I said automatically, then winced at how inadequate the words sounded. His hand fell away from my neck. The food is getting cold, just like that. The moment was over. He turned back to the microwave, retrieving our plates with mechanical efficiency. I followed him to a dining table that overlooked the dark water, still trying to process what he'd revealed. We ate in silence for a while, some kind of pasta dish that would have been delicious under normal circumstances. As it was, each bite felt like a struggle against the tightness in my throat. How did she die? I finally asked, unable to contain my curiosity. Luca's fork paused halfway to his mouth. He set it down carefully. Car bomb. Meant for me. The bluntness of his answer made me flinch. God, that's awful. Don't say you're sorry again, he interrupted, his voice sharp. It was a long time ago, but the grief in his eyes told a different story. 5 years hadn't dulled the pain, hadn't even begun to heal the wound. Is that why you had me watched? Because I look like her? He took a sip of water before answering. Initially, but then I became concerned for your safety. Because of the Constantines? Because of the company you keep? His gaze hardened. Your ex-boyfriend, Ryan Sullivan. He's involved with people who traffic more than just drugs. The mention of Ryan sent ice through my veins. We'd broken up 6 months ago after I'd discovered his cocaine habit, a habit that had apparently escalated since our split. If the rumors Tina occasionally reported were true, how do you know about Ryan? I make it my business to know everything about the people in my territory, he said simply, as if this explained his intrusion into my personal life, especially those connected to people who interest me. I haven't spoken to Ryan in months, I said defensively. We're completely done. He doesn't seem to share that sentiment. He's been watching your apartment, following you to work. Did you know that? I set down my fork, appetite gone. No, Luca echoed. Of course not. You walk around with your headphones in, unaware of your surroundings. You leave your drink unattended at bars. You get into cars with strangers after they've forced their way into your apartment. A muscle ticked in his jaw. You make it remarkably easy for people to hurt you, Emma. His criticism stung, all the more because I suspected he was right. I'd always prided myself on my independence, but perhaps I'd confused independence with carelessness. So you've been watching me to, what? Protect me from my ex? Among other things. What other things? He didn't answer immediately, instead rising to take our plates to the kitchen. I followed, unwilling to let him evade the question. What other things, Luca? He turned to face me, his expression unreadable again. Perhaps I simply found you intriguing. There was something in his tone, something that made heat rise to my cheeks despite everything. You don't even know me. I know more than you think, he countered. I know you work 2 jobs, bartending and something with books that you're passionate about. I know you send money to someone in Seattle every month. I know you have nightmares that wake you at 3 a.m. I know you drink your coffee black except on Sundays, when you allow yourself cream and sugar. Each word felt like an invasion, an intimacy I hadn't granted. Stop it. I know you paint when you're anxious. I know you keep a baseball bat by your door but wouldn't know how to swing it effectively. I know you cry during phone calls with your mother, but never when you're alone. I said stop. My voice echoed in the kitchen, sharp with distress. To my surprise, he did. His expression softened fractionally. Forgive me. I've made you uncomfortable. You've made me feel violated, I corrected, wrapping my arms around myself. Watching someone doesn't mean you know them. Perhaps not, he conceded. But it does allow me to keep them safe. Safe, I repeated, bitter laughter escaping me. Is that what this is? I'm hiding in a stranger's house, unable to return to my life, being hunted by people I've never met because they think I mean something to you. I don't feel safe, Luca. I feel trapped. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. Would you prefer I had left you in your apartment? Let the Constantines take you? Because I assure you, Emma, what they would have done to you makes this... He gestured to the space between us, seemed like a kindness. The conviction in his voice chilled me. For the first time, I truly considered the alternative. What might have happened if he hadn't arrived at my door when he did? The thought made my knees weak. I need some air, I said, turning away from the intensity of his gaze. The back terrace is secured, he said after a moment, but don't go beyond the tree line. The property is monitored, but I'd prefer you stay where I can see you. The possessiveness in his tone should have bothered me more than it did. Instead, I felt a treacherous flutter in my chest at the idea that he wanted to keep me in his sights. I found my way through a set of glass doors to a stone terrace that overlooked the lake. The rain had stopped, leaving behind a misty silence broken only by the gentle lapping of water against the shore. The air was cool, heavy with the scent of wet earth and pine. I breathed it in deeply, trying to clear my head. Behind me, I heard the soft click of the door opening, then closing. I didn't turn, but I felt Luca's presence as he came to stand beside me at the railing. I never meant for any of this to happen, he said, his voice quiet against the backdrop of night sounds. I only wanted to understand why seeing you affected me the way it did. And did you? Understand? He was silent for so long I thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice had a vulnerability I hadn't heard before. No. The resemblance to Sophia is there. Yes, but my interest in you has become something else entirely. I turned to look at him then, studying his profile against the night sky. What has it become? His eyes met mine, and the intensity in them made my breath catch. An obsession, he admitted. One I've tried and failed to control. The confession hung between us, dangerous and thrilling in equal measure. I should have been frightened. I should have backed away. Instead, I found myself swaying toward him, drawn by some force I couldn't name. "Luca," I whispered, uncertain what I meant to say next. His phone rang, shattering the moment. The vulnerability vanished from his expression as he answered it, speaking in rapid Italian that sounded tense, urgent. I watched as his posture stiffened, his free hand clenching into a fist at his side. When he ended the call, his face had transformed completely, becoming the mask of the dangerous man I'd glimpsed in his threats earlier. "What is it?" I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. "The Constantines," he said, already moving toward the door, gesturing for me to follow. "They found your friend Tina before my men could reach her." I froze, terror gripping me. "Is she alive?" he said quickly. "But they're using her to draw you out. They've sent a message." Inside, he led me to a laptop on the kitchen counter, opening it to reveal a video call waiting to connect. The screen flickered to life, showing a terrified Tina tied to a chair, her mascara streaked down her cheeks, a bruise darkening her left cheekbone. "Emma," she cried when she saw me. "Emma, I'm sorry. I'm so—" A hand appeared in the frame, slapping her hard enough to snap her head to the side. I gasped, instinctively reaching toward the screen as if I could somehow protect her. A man moved into view, tall, blonde, with the kind of handsome features that might have been charming in another context. His cold smile made my blood run cold. "Miss Campbell," he said, his accent thick, Eastern European. "How nice to finally meet you. I am Victor Constantine. I believe you have something that belongs to me." I looked at Luca in confusion, but his eyes were fixed on the screen, his expression murderous. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, turning back to the video. "Please don't hurt her. She has nothing to do with this." Victor laughed, the sound chilling in its genuine amusement. "Oh, I think you do know. You see, we've been watching you for some time. Ever since Valenti's men started circling you like wolves. At first, I thought perhaps you were just his latest whore." Beside me, Luca tensed, but remained silent. "But then, I realized," Victor continued, running a finger down Tina's tear-stained cheek, "that you must be much more valuable than that. Why else would the great Luca Valenti himself come running when you sent him a text? Why else would he keep such close watch over you? Please," I said again, desperation clawing at my throat. "Whatever you think I am to him, you're wrong. We barely know each other." Victor's smile widened. "Is that what he told you? How fascinating." He leaned closer to the camera. "Ask him about the thumb drive, Miss Campbell. Ask him what was on it that was worth my brother's life." I turned to Luca, confusion mixing with growing horror. "What is he talking about?" But Luca's attention was fixed on Victor, his expression coldly furious. "Let the woman go, Constantine. Your quarrel is with me." "But I'm having so much more success quarreling with you through her," Victor replied, gesturing to Tina. "You have until dawn to bring me what I want, the original drive and all copies, or your girlfriend's friend here will be returning to her in pieces." The screen went black, leaving us in stunned silence. "Luca," I said, my voice shaking. "What thumb drive? What was he talking about?" Luca closed the laptop, his movements controlled, deliberate. When he looked at me, his eyes were as cold as I'd ever seen them. "Get your things," he said. "We're leaving." "No!" I grabbed his arm as he turned away. "You don't get to do that. Not now. Tell me the truth. Why does he think I have something of his?" Luca's jaw tightened. For a moment I thought he might refuse to answer. Then he sighed, running a hand through his hair in a gesture that seemed surprisingly human. "Because," he said finally, "the night of the gala wasn't the first time we met." "That's impossible," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I would remember meeting you." Luca's expression was unreadable as he took my elbow, guiding me away from the kitchen and deeper into the house. "We need to move. This location may be compromised." "No." I planted my feet, refusing to be led further until I had answers. You don't get to drop a bomb like that and then just walk away. What do you mean we've met before? When? Where? His eyes darkened with impatience. But something in my stance must have convinced him I wouldn't budge. He checked his watch, then exhaled sharply. Fine. You were working at the Crimson Room about 8 months ago. Private party in the back room. I frowned, trying to recall. The Crimson Room was an upscale cocktail bar downtown where I'd picked up shifts occasionally. I've worked dozens of private parties there. This one was for Anton Konstantin's birthday. Luca's voice hardened. Victor's younger brother. The name triggered something, a hazy memory of a raucous group of Eastern European men. Too much champagne, a generous tip left in cash. Maybe, I admitted. But I still don't see how... You served drinks. I was there to discuss business with Anton. Luca's eyes never left mine, watching for recognition. After the meeting, Anton got handsy with one of the waitresses. You intervened. Got a drink thrown in your face for your trouble. The memory crystallized suddenly. The young, drunk birthday boy grabbing at my coworker Mia, the way I'd stepped between them, the shock of cold liquid splashing across my face and chest. What I didn't remember was Luca being there. I still had to finish my shift, I recalled slowly. I went to the back office to clean up, borrow a shirt from Lost and Found, and then... nothing. The memory went fuzzy after that, dissolving into fragments that didn't quite connect. And then you found something that didn't belong to you, Luca finished for me, his tone carefully neutral, a thumb drive that had fallen from Anton's pocket during the altercation. I shook my head, confusion and disbelief warring within me. No. I would remember that. Would you? He stepped closer, his proximity overwhelming in the narrow hallway. You hit your head when you slipped on the spilled drink. Do you remember that part? I raised my hand automatically to the back of my head, where a small scar remained hidden beneath my hair. The result of what I'd been told was a minor workplace accident. The details had always been fuzzy, attributed to the mild concussion I'd sustained. That's convenient, I said, fighting the creeping sense that he might be telling the truth. I conveniently don't remember finding something that apparently got people killed. I'm not lying to you, Emma. There was something almost like hurt in his eyes. I wish I were. It would make this simpler. Make what simpler? None of this makes sense. The sound of a car engine outside interrupted us. Luca tensed, his hand moving instinctively to his side where I realized with a shock he was carrying a concealed weapon. That's Marco, he said after checking his phone. We need to leave. Now. This time I didn't resist as he guided me through the house to a different exit than the one we'd entered through. My backpack was waiting by the door. A different black SUV idled outside, Marco's massive silhouette visible behind the wheel. What about my things at the other safe house? I asked, remembering that Marco had taken my backpack there. This is your bag, Luca replied. Marco brought it when he returned. Get in the car, Emma. Please. The please sounded forced, a concession to civility when what he clearly wanted was to simply push me into the vehicle. I climbed in anyway, my mind still reeling from his revelation. Luca slid in beside me, and within moments we were moving, the lights of the lakeside house disappearing behind us. Where are we going now? I asked, watching the unfamiliar landscape slip past the windows. We seemed to be heading away from the city. Somewhere the Constantines won't think to look, Luca replied, his attention on his phone as he sent a series of texts. Somewhere even most of my own people don't know about. And Tina? We can't just leave her with those people. Luca's jaw tightened. We're not. My men are tracking the signal from the video call. Once we have a location, we'll move. Move how? Call the police? The look he gave me was almost pitying. The police are not an option, Emma. Not for this. The implication hung heavy in the air between us. Whatever he planned to do to rescue Tina would fall well outside the boundaries of law. I should have been horrified, should have demanded he take me to the nearest police station. Instead, I found myself nodding, accepting his answer with a resignation that surprised me. We drove in silence for nearly an hour, leaving the sprawl of Chicago far behind. The landscape grew more rural, houses giving way to fields and forests. Finally, The SUV turned onto an unmarked road that wound through dense woods. After several minutes of bumping along what was little more than a dirt track, we emerged into a clearing where a cabin stood, its windows dark. Unlike the sleek modernism of the lake house, this place looked rustic, almost ordinary. The kind of weekend retreat a normal person might own. Only the subtle presence of security cameras tucked beneath the eaves suggested it was anything more. "My father built this place before I was born," Luca explained as Marco checked the perimeter. "It's not in my name or connected to the family in any official records." The interior was surprisingly warm and comfortable, a stark contrast to the sterile luxury of the lake house. Worn leather furniture, a stone fireplace, bookshelves filled with actual books rather than decorative objects. It looked lived in, loved even. "You spend time here," I observed, running my fingers along a shelf where a fine layer of dust should have been, but wasn't. Luca nodded, removing his suit jacket and shoulder holster with practiced efficiency. The sight of the gun made the reality of our situation hit home again. This man was dangerous, potentially deadly, and I was alone with him in the middle of nowhere. "It's where I come when I need to think," he said, setting the holster on a side table within easy reach. "No one will find us here, except your man Marco," I pointed out. "Marco has been with me since I was a child," Luca replied, moving to what appeared to be a liquor cabinet. "He's the only one I trust completely." He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid, whiskey, I guessed, and offered me one. I hesitated before accepting it, suddenly aware of how thirsty I was. "Just sips," he advised, his tone softening slightly. "It's stronger than you're used to." I took his advice, the liquor burning a pleasant path down my throat, warming me from the inside. "You were going to explain about the thumb drive." Luca took a seat in one of the armchairs, gesturing for me to take the other. I remained standing, needing the psychological advantage of height, minimal though it was against his seated form. "The drive contained evidence," he said after a moment. "Financial records, dates, names, the kind of evidence that could destroy several powerful families, mine included." "So it was what? Blackmail material?" "Insurance," he corrected. Anton Constantine was young, ambitious, reckless. He'd collected the information as leverage against his rivals, including his own brother. He brought it to our meeting that night, hoping to use it to negotiate a better position for himself in our arrangement. I took another sip of whiskey, trying to process the implications. "And when I found it, I found you," Luca continued. "Unconscious in the back office, the drive was in your hand." A chill ran through me despite the whiskey's warmth. "What did you do to me?" His eyes flashed with something almost like hurt. "Nothing that you're implying. I checked your pulse, made sure you weren't seriously injured. Then I took the drive and left." "You just left me there? Unconscious?" The betrayal I felt was irrational. We'd been strangers then, but potent nonetheless. "I called an ambulance from a burner phone," he said, his voice hardening defensively. "Made sure you'd be found quickly. Then I left." "And the thumb drive?" "I destroyed it," he said, watching me carefully, after copying the contents. The pieces were starting to fit together. "And Anton found out somehow." Luca nodded. "He suspected. Couldn't prove it was me who took it, but he knew it was missing after his encounter with you. Started making inquiries. 3 weeks later, he was found in the Chicago River with his throat cut." I gasped, the glass nearly slipping from my fingers. "You—" "Not me," Luca interrupted sharply. "I had no reason to kill him. The information on that drive was far more valuable to me with him alive and in my debt. Then who?" "Victor." Luca's expression darkened. He discovered his brother's collection of secrets and eliminated the threat. But the drive was already missing, and Anton's final calls had been to people asking about a bartender who'd been working the night of his party. The implications hit me like a physical blow. He thought I still had it, or knew where it was. Yes. And when my men started appearing around you, he assumed it was because I was working with you. I sank into the chair opposite Luca, legs suddenly too weak to support me. "But why did you start having me watched in the first place, if you'd already dealt with the drive?" Something shifted in Luca's expression, a flash of emotion quickly masked. "After Anton's death, I knew Victor would eventually trace the missing drive back to you. I assigned men to watch you, to intercept any threat before it reached you. Out of the goodness of your heart, I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. Out of responsibility, he countered. My business with Anton put you in danger. I couldn't leave you unprotected. It was a perfectly reasonable explanation. Too reasonable, perhaps. And the gala? You just happened to be there when I was working? A muscle ticked in his jaw. I arranged it. I wanted to see you for myself, to understand if you remembered anything from that night. You could have just asked me. Would you have told the truth to a stranger asking about a stolen drive full of incriminating information? He had a point, infuriating as it was to admit. So what happens now? We just hide out here while your men try to find Tina? Luca leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, suddenly intense. Victor believes you have the drive, or know where it is. Nothing I say will convince him otherwise. He's not a man who trusts easily. The only way to ensure your safety, and your friends', is to give him what he wants, but you destroyed it. I have the copy, he said, but giving it to him means exposing vulnerabilities in my own organization. People will die, Emma. My people. The weight of those words hung heavy between us. He was asking me to choose, Tina's life or the lives of people I'd never met, people who worked for a criminal enterprise I wanted no part of. There has to be another way, I said, desperate for an alternative. Luca's phone chimed before he could respond. He checked it, his expression hardening into something cold and dangerous. They've found where they're holding your friend. Where? An abandoned factory on the south side, one of the Constantine properties that didn't make it onto official records. He was already rising, moving with purpose as he retrieved his weapon. Marco and I will handle it. I'm coming with you, I said, standing to face him. Absolutely not. She's my friend, Luca. This is happening because of me. This is happening because of Victor Constantine's paranoia and greed. He corrected, his voice sharp. And you'll only be in the way. I won't stay behind while you— I couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't put into words what I knew he planned to do. While I what, Emma? He challenged, stepping close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. While I kill the men who took your friend. Is that what you're afraid of? I swallowed hard. Yes. Good, he said softly. You should be afraid of that. You should be afraid of me. But I wasn't. Not in the way he meant. What frightened me most in that moment was the realization that I trusted him to do whatever was necessary to save Tina, that somehow, in the space of a few chaotic hours, this dangerous man had become my only hope. If you're not back by dawn, I said instead, I'm calling the police. Something like amusement flickered in his eyes. With what phone? In the middle of nowhere? I glanced around, realizing I hadn't seen a landline. My own phone had no service this far from the city. I was completely cut off. There's a satellite phone in the drawer by the bed, he said, apparently taking pity on me. But I'll be back before dawn, with your friend. The confidence in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it reminded me of exactly who and what he was, a man accustomed to violence, to taking what he wanted through force. And then what? I asked. We can't just go back to our lives, can we? Luca's expression softened slightly. No, not as they were. But I'll make sure you're taken care of, both of you. The promise hung between us, loaded with implications I wasn't ready to examine. Before I could respond, the door opened and Marco entered, his expression grim. It's time, Luca said, turning away from me. There's food in the kitchen. Don't open the door for anyone but me. And then they were gone, leaving me alone in the quiet cabin with nothing but my thoughts and fears for company. The hours crawled by with excruciating slowness. I paced the cabin, examining my surroundings more carefully now that I was alone. Despite Luca's claim that this was a personal retreat, there were few truly personal items. No photographs, no mail, nothing that might reveal anything intimate about the man who owned it. In the bedroom, I found evidence of his presence in more subtle ways. A book on the nightstand with a ticket stub marking his place. A sweater draped over a chair that looked too worn to be anything but a favorite. I touched these items gingerly, feeling like an intruder, but desperate for some insight into the man who had upended my life so completely. The book was in Italian, something I couldn't read, The sweater was soft with age and smelled faintly of his cologne. I drew it around my shoulders without fully examining why, taking comfort in its warmth as I continued my exploration. A desk in the corner held a locked drawer, the only thing in the cabin that seemed deliberately secured. My fingers itched to try to open it, but I resisted the urge. I'd already stumbled into enough trouble without actively seeking more. In the kitchen, I found the promised food, simple provisions that required minimal preparation. I wasn't hungry, but I forced myself to eat something anyway, knowing I needed to keep my strength up. For what, I wasn't entirely sure. As I ate, I contemplated my options. They were, I had to admit, severely limited. I could try to flee, but where would I go? I had no transportation, no phone service, and no idea where I was. Even if I managed to reach civilization somehow, Victor Constantine's men would still be looking for me, and Tina would still be in danger. I could wait for Luca to return, hope that his rescue mission succeeded, and then, what? Accept whatever new life he arranged for me? The thought should have terrified me, but instead it sent a complicated mix of emotions swirling through my chest. In the span of one night, everything I knew had been stripped away. My apartment, my job, my sense of who I was and what my life meant. All of it suddenly felt like a facade, a flimsy construction that had collapsed at the first real test. And beneath the rubble, a disturbing thought was taking shape. Maybe this chaos, this danger, this man, maybe this was more real than anything I'd experienced before. I was still wrestling with this unsettling idea when I heard a car approaching. My heart leapt into my throat as I moved to the window, peering cautiously through the blinds. The black SUV had returned, pulling up in front of the cabin. Luca emerged first, his clothing disheveled, a dark stain on his white shirt that I prayed wasn't blood. Marco followed, supporting a figure between them that I recognized with a surge of relief. "Tina!" I cried, rushing to open the door despite Luca's earlier warning. My friend looked up at the sound of my voice, her face pale and tear-streaked but gloriously, wonderfully alive. "Emma?" I ran to her, taking her weight from Marco as she stumbled toward me. She felt fragile in my arms, trembling like a leaf in a storm. "It's okay," I whispered, guiding her inside. "You're safe now." Luca followed us in, his expression unreadable as he watched our reunion. There was definitely blood on his shirt, I realized, but he moved without any sign of injury. The blood wasn't his. "She needs rest," he said, his voice controlled, professional, "and probably a doctor, but that will have to wait until morning." I led Tina to the couch, helping her sit as she clung to my hand like a lifeline. "What happened?" I asked, looking between her and Luca. "What did they do to you?" "They didn't..." Tina swallowed hard, her voice hoarse. "They just scared me. A lot. Said they'd start cutting off fingers if..." She broke off, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "It's over now," I soothed, though I had no right to make such promises. Luca disappeared into another room, returning moments later with a glass of water and what appeared to be prescription pills. "For the pain," he explained, offering them to Tina. "Nothing too strong." She hesitated, looking to me for guidance. I nodded, and she accepted them with shaking hands. "Thank you," she said, her voice small as she looked up at Luca, "for coming for me." Something shifted in his expression, a momentary softening that vanished as quickly as it had appeared. "You should rest," he said again, turning away. I helped Tina to the bedroom, settling her under the covers. She was asleep almost instantly, exhaustion and medication pulling her under. I watched her for a few moments, reassuring myself that she was really here, really safe, before returning to the main room. Luca stood by the fireplace, staring into the flames he'd apparently just lit. He'd changed his shirt, I noticed, but there was still a smudge of something dark on his wrist. He'd rolled his sleeves up, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars I hadn't noticed before. "Is she really okay?" I asked quietly. He didn't look up from the fire. "Physically, yes. They hadn't started on the threats they made in the video yet. Mentally." He shrugged. "That depends on her resilience. And the men who took her?" Now he did look at me, his eyes reflecting the firelight. Do you really want the answer to that question, Emma? I didn't, but I asked anyway. Did you kill them? Yes. No hesitation. No remorse. Just a simple statement of fact. I should have been horrified, should have recoiled from him, from the violence he represented. Instead, I found myself nodding, accepting his answer with a calm that disturbed me. What happens now? I asked, wrapping my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the fire's warmth. Now we wait, he said, turning back to the flames. Victor will discover his men are dead. He'll come looking for us with everything he has. But he won't find us here? Eventually he might. Nothing stays hidden forever. Luca moved to pour himself a drink, not offering me one this time. But it will buy us time to plan our next move. Which is... He took a long sip before answering. I give him what he wants. The copy of the drive? I frowned, confused. But you said that would put your people in danger. It will. But I see no alternative now. The firelight cast his features in sharp relief, highlighting the weariness I hadn't noticed before. The situation has escalated beyond what I can control through normal channels. Because you killed his men. Because I took you, he corrected. Victor was willing to use your friend to draw you out. Imagine what he'll do, now that I've taken both of you from him, killed his men in the process. The reality of our situation hit me anew. This isn't going to end, is it? He'll keep coming after us. Luca's eyes met mine, and in them I saw a determination that sent a shiver down my spine. Not if he's no longer able to. The implication was clear. You're going to kill him. It's the only permanent solution, he said simply, as if discussing a business strategy rather than murder. There has to be another way. Like what, Emma? There was a sudden edge to his voice. Go to the police, turn state's evidence, enter witness protection. Do you really think a man like Victor Constantine couldn't find you if he wanted to? Couldn't get to your family, your friends? I flinched at the mention of my family. You leave them out of this. I wish I could, he said, his voice softening slightly. But they're already in it. The moment Victor identified you as valuable to me, everyone you care about became a target. Valuable to you, I repeated, focusing on the phrase that had been nagging at me all night. Why am I valuable to you, Luca? Really, it's not just because I look like your sister, is it? He set his glass down carefully, his movements deliberate. No, it's not just that. Then what? He crossed the room toward me, stopping close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. I've watched you for months, Emma, learned your routines, your habits. Seen how you care for the people around you, how you fight for them even when it costs you. That's not an answer, isn't it? His hand came up to cup my cheek, the gesture surprisingly gentle from a man I'd just watched admit to murder. I've lived my life surrounded by people who want things from me. Power, money, protection. No one sees past what I represent to who I am. And you think I do? I didn't pull away from his touch, though I knew I should. I think you could, he said softly, if given the chance. Before I could respond, a noise from the bedroom caught our attention. Tina, calling my name. I stepped back from Luca, breaking the strange tension that had built between us. You should go to her, he said, his hand falling back to his side. She needs you more than I do right now. I nodded, grateful for the interruption, yet strangely reluctant to leave. At the bedroom door, I paused, looking back at him. For what it's worth, I said quietly, I think I'm starting to see you, Luca Valenti. And I'm not sure if that terrifies me or thrills me more. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Perhaps both is the appropriate response. Perhaps it was. As I closed the door behind me, going to comfort my traumatized friend, I couldn't shake the feeling that despite everything, the danger, the violence, the complete upheaval of my life, something fundamental had shifted within me. Something that couldn't be undone, no matter how this ended. And in the quiet of my mind, a treacherous thought formed. Maybe I didn't want it to be undone. Morning arrived with pale light filtering through unfamiliar windows. I'd spent the night beside Tina, listening to her breathe, reassuring her when nightmares jolted her awake. Now she slept peacefully, the worst of her fear seemingly exhausted. I slipped from the bedroom quietly, my body stiff from the awkward position I'd maintained through the night. The cabin was silent, except for the soft crackle of embers in the fireplace. Luca sat in one of the armchairs, his posture suggesting he hadn't moved much since our conversation hours before. "Did you sleep at all?" I asked, my voice sounding too loud in the morning quiet. He looked up, dark circles beneath his eyes confirming my suspicion. Someone needed to keep watch. "What about Marco?" "Perimeter checks every hour." Luca stretched, rolling his shoulders to release tension. "He'll be back soon with supplies." I moved to the kitchen, searching for coffee. The domesticity of the action felt surreal after everything that had happened. "You have a plan," I said. Not a question, but a statement. The beginnings of one. He rose, joining me in the kitchen, reaching past me to open a cabinet I hadn't checked. His proximity sent a shiver through me that had nothing to do with fear. "Here." Our fingers brushed as he handed me the coffee canister. The touch lingered a heartbeat longer than necessary. "Thank you." I busied myself with the coffee maker, needing the distraction. "Are you going to share this plan, or is it on a need-to-know basis?" A hint of a smile tugged at his lips. "Developing a taste for sarcasm, I see." "Developing a taste for answers," I countered, measuring grounds into the filter. "My life is at stake too." He leaned against the counter, watching me work. "Victor expects me to contact him, to try to negotiate. He believes I'll offer the drive in exchange for your safety. And will you?" "I'll offer it," he said carefully. "But the exchange won't go as he expects." I turned to face him fully. "You're setting a trap." "Yes." "And what happens when he doesn't show up himself? When he sends more men instead?" Luca's expression hardened. "He'll come." "Victor's pride won't allow him to delegate this. Not after I took you and your friend from under his nose. Killed his men." The casual reference to killing should have disturbed me more. Instead, I found myself nodding, accepting his assessment. "And if you're wrong?" "I'm not." The certainty in his voice was absolute. "But I need your help to make this work." "My help?" I almost laughed. "What could I possibly do that your men can't?" "Victor believes you have the drive or know where it is. He needs to believe I'm bringing you to the exchange because you've insisted on being there, on seeing this through yourself." Understanding dawned. "You want me to be bait. I want you to be present," he corrected. "Under the full protection of my men, with no actual risk to yourself." "No actual risk," I repeated incredulously. "In a confrontation with a violent criminal who wants me dead." Luca stepped closer, his intensity filling the small kitchen. "I would never let anything happen to you, Emma. Never." The conviction in his voice made my heart stutter. "You can't promise that." "I can," he insisted. "And I do." We stared at each other, the air between us charged with something I couldn't, or wouldn't, name. The coffee maker gurgled behind me, breaking the moment. "I'll think about it," I said, turning back to pour 2 cups. "But first, I need to check on Tina." He accepted the coffee I offered, his fingers grazing mine again. "Of course." When I returned to the bedroom, Tina was awake, sitting up against the headboard with wary eyes that relaxed slightly when she saw me. "Hey," I said softly, sitting beside her. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck, then the truck backed up and hit me again." She attempted a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "What the hell is happening, Emma? One minute we're at the bar, the next I'm being grabbed off the street by men with guns, and then—" She trailed off, shuddering. "It's complicated," I said, knowing how inadequate that sounded. "No shit." She took my hand, squeezing hard. "That man, Luca, he killed people last night, to save me." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I saw it happen, Emma. He didn't even hesitate." I swallowed hard. "I know." "Who is he to you? Really?" It was the question I'd been asking myself all night. "I'm not sure yet," I admitted. "But he's the only reason we're both still alive." Tina searched my face, finding something there that made her eyes widen slightly. "You're falling for him." "No," I said too quickly. "That's insane. He's dangerous. So's a hurricane, but people still chase those too. She shook her head. I saw how he looked at you last night, like you were the only thing that mattered in the entire world, like he'd burn it all down to keep you safe. Her words hit something raw inside me. It's not like that. Isn't it? Tina leaned back against the pillows, suddenly looking exhausted. Just be careful, Em. Men like that. They don't love the way normal people do. It's all possession and obsession. The warning felt unnecessary. I'd seen the dangerous edge to Luca's interest in me. Yet something in me rebelled against Tina's assessment, wanted to defend him. Before I could respond, a soft knock at the door interrupted us. Luca stood there, his expression carefully neutral. Marco's back, he said. He's brought clothes, food, medical supplies. Thank you, I replied, unsure what else to say with Tina watching us so intently. I've drawn a bath for your friend, he continued, his eyes flicking briefly to Tina. Thought she might appreciate it. The thoughtfulness of the gesture surprised me. That would be great, wouldn't it, Tina? She nodded, still watching Luca warily. Yeah, thanks. I helped her to the bathroom, where a steaming bath awaited, complete with towels and fresh clothes laid out. Once she was settled, I returned to find Luca in the kitchen, unpacking groceries with a domestic ease that seemed at odds with everything I knew about him. That was kind, I said, leaning against the doorframe. The bath. He glanced up, then continued his task. It's a basic comfort. Everyone deserves that after trauma. There was something in his tone, a personal knowledge of trauma that made me wonder what experiences had shaped him, what had turned a man capable of such consideration into someone who could also kill without hesitation. I'll do it, I said abruptly. Help with your plan. His movement stilled. You're certain? No, I admitted, but I don't see another way out of this. For any of us. He turned to face me fully, studying me with an intensity that made me feel transparent. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I have conditions. A hint of amusement flickered in his eyes. Of course you do. Tina stays here, safe, with Marco. She doesn't come anywhere near the exchange. He nodded. Already part of the plan. And when this is over, assuming we survive, you help us disappear. New identities, new lives. Somewhere Victor's associates can't find us. That won't be necessary after Victor is dealt with, he said, with a confidence that sent a chill through me. You can't be sure of that. There could be others who'll want revenge. Luca stepped closer, closing the distance between us. What if I don't want you to disappear? The question hung between us, loaded with implications. What do you mean? You know what I mean. His voice softened. From the moment I saw you, truly saw you, not just the resemblance to Sophia, I've been unable to get you out of my mind. The thought of you vanishing from my life. He trailed off, jaw tightening. I don't find that acceptable. What you find acceptable isn't the point, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady despite the way my heart raced. My life isn't yours to control. No, he agreed, surprising me. It isn't. But I am offering you a choice. What choice? Stay, he said simply. With me. Under my protection. The offer stunned me into momentary silence. As what? Your prisoner? Your pet? Anger flashed in his eyes. As my partner, if that's what you want. Or simply as someone under my protection, maintaining whatever life you choose to build. The terms would be yours to set. It was the last thing I'd expected. This dangerous man offering me agency, choice. Why? His expression softened fractionally. Because in all my years of watching people, calculating their motives and manipulating their desires, you're the only one who's ever looked at me and seen past the name, the power, the violence. You see me, Emma, the man beneath it all. You've killed people, I said, needing to remind us both of this fundamental truth. Yes, he acknowledged without hesitation, and I'll kill again to protect what's mine. I won't pretend to be something I'm not, but with you. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair from my face. With you, I could perhaps be more than what I've been. The sincerity in his eyes made my chest ache. This was madness, Stockholm Syndrome at its finest, And yet I couldn't deny the pull I felt toward him, the strange sense of recognition, as if some part of me had been waiting for him without knowing it. "I can't promise anything," I said finally. "Not until this is over, not until I've had time to think clearly, away from all this chaos." He nodded, accepting my answer with a grace that surprised me. "That's all I ask. The possibility." The bathroom door opened, interrupting whatever might have come next. Tina emerged looking better, still pale, still shaken, but cleaner and more composed. The moment between Luca and me dissipated, reality reasserting itself. The rest of the day passed in a strange limbo of domestic routines and intense planning. Luca outlined his strategy for the exchange, a meeting at an abandoned factory complex that both families had used for legitimate business in the past. Neutral ground, theoretically, though I gathered from his tone that Luca had already taken steps to ensure the advantage would be his. Marco would remain with Tina, while a team of Luca's most trusted men would position themselves throughout the complex before our arrival. I would accompany Luca, seemingly as insurance that the drive would be handed over only after my safety was guaranteed. In reality, I would be wearing a bulletproof vest beneath my clothes and would remain in the car until Victor's arrival was confirmed and the situation secured. "He'll expect a double cross," I pointed out, as we reviewed the plan for the third time. "He's not stupid." "No," Luca agreed. "He's not stupid, but he is predictable. He'll expect the obvious double cross, men hidden in the rafters, a sniper on the roof. He won't expect what's actually coming." "Which is?" Luca's smile was cold. "Let's just say we've had someone inside Victor's organization for years. Tonight, that investment pays off." I shivered, not wanting to know more details. The less I knew about the specifics of what would happen, the less complicit I would feel in the violence to come. As evening approached, tension built in the small cabin. Marco prepared weapons with methodical precision. Luca made phone calls in rapid Italian, his voice controlled but with an undercurrent of authority that reminded me of exactly who he was. Not just the man who'd shown me kindness and concern, but a leader of men capable of orchestrating death from a distance. Tina watched it all with a detachment that worried me, her eyes vacant except when they fixed on me. Then they filled with a concern that made guilt twist in my stomach. "You don't have to do this," she said when we had a moment alone. "We could still run, find a police station, ask for protection." "And say what?" I asked gently. "That we're caught between warring crime families? That we have no evidence but our word against theirs? We'd be dead before the paperwork was filed." She didn't argue, which told me she'd already reached the same conclusion herself. As darkness fell, Luca found me standing by the window, watching the forest grow dim around us. "It's time," he said quietly. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The reality of what we were about to do, what he was about to do, pressed down on me with suffocating weight. Tina hugged me fiercely before I left. "Come back," she whispered. "Promise me." "I promise," I said, hoping it wasn't a lie. Outside, a different vehicle awaited us. A sleek sedan with tinted windows, more anonymous than the SUVs we'd used before, less likely to draw attention. Luca held the passenger door for me, his hand lingering on my arm as I slid into the seat. "Last chance to change your mind," he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. I looked up at him, at this man who had upended my entire existence in the space of a day, who had killed to protect me, who offered me choices even as circumstances stripped them away. "I'm coming with you," I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. "Let's finish this." Something like pride flickered in his eyes as he closed the door and moved to the driver's side. The engine purred to life, and we began the journey back toward Chicago, toward whatever end awaited us. In the gathering darkness, Luca reached across the center console and took my hand. I didn't pull away. Whatever came next, we would face it together. The city lights appeared on the horizon, a glittering sprawl that seemed to belong to another lifetime. Had it really been just over 24 hours since I'd been a normal woman with a normal life? Since my biggest concern had been making rent and finding a better job? Luca drove with confidence, one hand on the wheel, the other still holding mine. The warmth of his grip anchored me as anxiety threatened to overwhelm my determination. "Tell me about the life you had planned," he said suddenly, breaking the tense silence. "Before all this." The question caught me off guard. "Why?" "I want to know what I've taken from you," he replied, his voice soft but serious. "What I need to give back, if I can." I considered deflecting, but found myself answering honestly. "Nothing extraordinary. I was saving for graduate school, library science. I wanted to work with rare books, preservation. My shifts at the bars were just to make ends meet until I could afford tuition." "Books," he echoed, a small smile playing at his lips. "That explains the shelves in your apartment. The careful way you handle them, like they're precious things. You notice that?" The idea that he'd observed such intimate details about me was both unsettling and strangely warming. "I notice everything about you, Emma." He glanced at me briefly, before returning his attention to the road. "The way you tuck your hair behind your ear when you're thinking, how you always check the exits when you enter a room, the fact that you drink coffee with your left hand, but write with your right." A shiver ran through me that had nothing to do with fear. "That's invasive?" he suggested, his tone rueful. "Obsessive?" "Thorough," I decided, "and yes, a little unsettling." He squeezed my hand gently. "I never meant to disrupt your life, only to protect it, from a distance. And now?" His profile was sharp against the passing lights, jaw tight with tension he otherwise concealed. "Now I find myself wanting to be part of it, not just its shadow." The confession hung between us, honest in a way I hadn't expected. Before I could respond, he continued. "You could still have that life, you know, the graduate degree, the rare books. I have connections at universities, foundations that fund preservation work. Are you offering to be my patron?" I asked, unable to keep a hint of incredulity from my voice. "I'm offering to make amends," he corrected. "To ensure that after tonight, you can pursue whatever future you want." "With or without?" He cut himself off, jaw tightening. "With or without you," I finished for him. He nodded once, sharp and precise. We lapsed into silence as the city enveloped us, the familiar streets now seeming alien, threatening. Luca navigated through less traveled routes, avoiding main thoroughfares where cameras might track our passage. Finally, we turned into an industrial area, the buildings growing more dilapidated with each block. "We're being followed," Luca said suddenly, his voice calm despite the words. 2 cars back, black sedan. My heart lurched as I resisted the urge to turn and look. Victor's men? Possibly, or police. Either way, a complication. He made another turn, this one sharper, accelerating slightly. Change of plans. There's a phone in the glove compartment. Password is 7294. Send a message to the contact labeled Falcon. Tell him we're moving to position B and need immediate support. I fumbled with the glove compartment, finding the sleek phone inside. My fingers trembled as I unlocked it and located the contact. Moving to position B, need immediate support. I hit send, then looked to Luca for further instructions. "Now call Marco," he directed. "Tell him the change, but use these exact words. The package needs rerouting to the alternate delivery point." I did as he asked. Marco's gruff acknowledgement the only response before the line went dead. "What does that mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady as Luca took another sharp turn. "It means the location is compromised. We're moving to our backup." His expression was focused, almost predatory now. "And it means you're staying in the car with 2 of my men while I handle this personally." That wasn't the plan. "The plan has changed." He cut me off, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I won't risk you further." He made several more seemingly random turns, the pursuing car still visible in the side mirror. Then, without warning, he accelerated into an alleyway so narrow I was certain we wouldn't fit. The sedan scraped through with inches to spare, emerging into a small courtyard behind what appeared to be an abandoned warehouse. 3 identical black SUVs waited, engines running. Men in dark clothing stood beside them, weapons visible. "My team," Luca explained, bringing our car to a stop. "The identical vehicles are to confuse anyone tracking us. You'll go in one with Paolo and Enzo. I'll take another. The third will serve as a decoy." Before I could respond, he was out of the car, striding toward the waiting men with an authority that transformed him. This was Luca Valenti in his element, the controlled businessman replaced by the commanding presence of a man born to power. I watched as he issued rapid instructions, the men nodding with efficient respect. When he returned to me, he opened my door and helped me out, keeping his body between me and the alley entrance. "The men following us have stopped at the alley mouth," he said, his voice low. "They're waiting for backup, which confirms they're victors. We have minutes, at most." From one of the SUVs, a man emerged carrying what looked like a bulletproof vest. "Put this on," Luca instructed, taking it from him. "Under your jacket." I complied, the weight of the vest unfamiliar and restrictive. Luca checked the fit with practiced hands, making minor adjustments before nodding his approval. "Emma," he said, his voice softening as he took my face between his hands. "Whatever happens next, remember that The crack of gunfire interrupted him, a bullet pinging off the sedan's trunk near us. In an instant, I was pulled down behind the vehicle, Luca's body covering mine protectively as his men returned fire. "Get her out!" Luca shouted, and suddenly I was being lifted, half carried toward one of the SUVs. I looked back, desperate to see Luca, but he had already moved to a position of cover, gun drawn. "Wait!" I called, struggling against the arms that held me. "Luca!" He glanced back, his eyes finding mine for a brief, electric moment. Then he nodded to the man holding me, a command, and I was bundled into the waiting vehicle. The doors slammed shut, and we were moving, the SUV lurching forward through a different exit than the one we'd entered through. The sounds of gunfire faded behind us as we sped away, leaving Luca and the chaotic scene behind. "Mr. Valenti will meet us at the secondary location," one of the men, Paolo, I assumed, said from the front passenger seat. "It's safer this way." "Safer?" I echoed, anger flaring through my fear. "He's back there in a gunfight. The boss can handle himself." The driver, Enzo, responded with confidence that did nothing to reassure me. This isn't his first firefight. That was precisely what worried me. I'd seen the calculated efficiency with which Luca operated, but even the most skilled strategist could be taken down by a lucky shot. The thought made my chest constrict painfully. We drove for what seemed like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes, eventually pulling into what appeared to be a private garage beneath a nondescript office building. The space was deserted except for a few other expensive vehicles parked in reserved spots. "Where are we?" I asked as the men escorted me from the SUV to an elevator. "One of Mr. Valenti's properties," Paolo explained, using a key card to access the elevator. "A legitimate business. Law firm upstairs, secure apartments on the top floor." The elevator ascended smoothly to the penthouse level, opening directly into a luxurious apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a stunning view of Chicago's skyline. It couldn't have been more different from the rustic cabin, all sleek modernity and urban sophistication. "Please make yourself comfortable, Miss Campbell," Paolo said, gesturing to the living area. "Mr. Valenti should be joining us shortly." "And if he doesn't?" I couldn't stop the question from escaping. The two men exchanged glances. "He will," Enzo said with finality. They positioned themselves near the entrance, professional and alert, despite the upscale surroundings. I paced the massive living room, unable to sit still, checking my watch every few minutes. The bulletproof vest restricted my movement, but I was reluctant to remove it, as if doing so might somehow jinx Luca's safe return. An hour passed, then another. Night deepened outside the windows, the city lights glittering like stars fallen to earth. Still, no word. "Something's wrong," I said finally, facing the two guards. "It shouldn't take this long." Paolo's expression remained impassive. "Mr. Valenti gave us strict instructions to remain here with you until his arrival. To hell with his instructions." My voice rose with fear and frustration. "What if he's hurt? What if he needs help?" "The boss has an entire team with him," Enzo said, his tone gentler than his partner's. "If he needed assistance, they would have called." Just as the words left his mouth, his phone rang. He answered it, speaking in rapid Italian, his expression giving nothing away. When he hung up, he nodded to Paolo. "They're on their way up," he said simply. Relief flooded through me so intensely my knees nearly buckled. "Luca's okay?" Enzo hesitated just long enough to send a fresh wave of fear through me. "He's coming." The elevator chimed before I could press for clarification. The doors slid open to reveal Marco supporting a grimacing Luca, whose white shirt was now stained crimson along his left side. "Luca!" I rushed forward without thinking, helping Marco guide him to the sofa. "It's nothing," Luca insisted through clenched teeth. "Graze only." "That's not nothing," I countered, carefully helping him out of his jacket to better assess the wound. "You need a doctor." "Already called," Marco assured me. "Our physician is on his way." The wound was indeed a graze, but a deep one that had carved a furrow along Luca's ribs. It was bleeding steadily, but not with the pulsing flow that would indicate an arterial hit. Still, he'd lost enough blood to leave him pale, his usual olive complexion ashen. "What happened?" I asked, accepting a first aid kit from Paolo and opening it with shaking hands. "Victor was more prepared than we anticipated," Luca said, wincing as I applied pressure to the wound. "Had more men in position. Did you—" I couldn't finish the question. "No," Luca admitted, frustration evident in his voice. "He escaped in the confusion, but not unscathed." Marco's expression was grim. 3 of our men were lost, 7 of Victor's. We believe he was hit at least once before his remaining guards extracted him. The casualty count hit me like a physical blow. 3 men dead because of a plan I'd agreed to participate in, because of a thumb drive I'd apparently found months ago without even remembering it. "This has to end," I said quietly, focusing on bandaging Luca's wound to avoid his eyes. "No more deaths. No more violence. There has to be another way." Luca's hand caught mine, stilling my movements. "Look at me, Emma." Reluctantly, I raised my eyes to his. "There is no clean end to this," he said, his voice gentle despite the harsh reality of his words. "Victor won't stop, not now. He's wounded, cornered, humiliated. Men like him don't forgive or forget." "Then what? We just keep killing until one side runs out of soldiers?" The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. "No," Luca said, his expression softening. "We changed the game entirely." Before he could elaborate, the elevator chimed again. A distinguished older man entered, carrying a medical bag. The doctor, presumably. He set to work immediately, cleaning and properly dressing Luca's wound with practiced efficiency, administering antibiotics, and what I suspected was a strong painkiller given how Luca's tense posture gradually relaxed. When the doctor finished, Marco escorted him out, leaving us alone with Paolo and Enzo still standing guard by the entrance. "Give us the room," Luca instructed them. They hesitated only briefly before complying, moving to positions in the hallway outside. "What did you mean, change the game?" I asked once we were alone. Luca shifted to sit more upright, grimacing slightly with the movement. "The drive contains more than just information on the Valenti and Constantine organizations. It has proof of corruption reaching into the highest levels of Chicago law enforcement, politics, judiciary." My eyes widened as understanding dawned. "You're going to release it?" "A edited version," he confirmed. "Enough to cripple Victor's protection in official circles without completely destabilizing the city's power structures." "Or implicating yourself," I added shrewdly. A hint of a smile touched his lips. "Precisely." "And you think that will stop him? Make him back off?" "No," Luca admitted. "But it will isolate him, make him vulnerable. And then I only need one clean shot, not an all-out war." The cold calculation in his voice reminded me sharply of who he was, what he was capable of, yet I couldn't deny the logic of his plan, or the fact that it would likely result in fewer deaths than continued open conflict between the families. "What happens to me and Tina in all this?" I asked finally. "Do we just go back to our lives once Victor is dealt with?" Luca's expression softened. "That depends on what you want, Emma." "What I want," I echoed, the question suddenly overwhelming in its implications. What did I want? To return to my small apartment, my bartending jobs, my solitary life with its modest ambitions, or something else? Something I'd never dared to consider before. "I want safety," I began slowly. "For myself and Tina. I want to finish my education, work with books like I planned. I want—" I hesitated, gathering courage. I want to understand what this is between us. Without the fear and violence clouding everything, hope flickered in Luca's eyes. Tentative, almost vulnerable. I can give you all of that, if you're willing to try. And the cost? I asked, needing to be clear-eyed about what I was considering. What would being with you really mean, Luca? What would it make me? He reached for my hand, his grip warm despite his pallor. It would make you exactly who you are. Emma Campbell, book lover, loyal friend, survivor. The woman who sees me for who I truly am, not just what I've done. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. I would never ask you to become something you're not, only to accept me as I am. It wasn't a simple choice. Nothing about Luca Valenti was simple. But as I looked at him, wounded, vulnerable, yet still emanating the strength that had kept me safe through this nightmare, I knew my decision had already been made. When this is over, I said, threading my fingers through his. When Victor is no longer a threat and Tina is safe, then we try. On my terms. Your terms. He agreed, bringing my hand to his lips. Whatever they may be. The future stretched before us, uncertain but filled with possibility. There would be challenges, his world and mine colliding in ways I couldn't yet imagine. There would be moral compromises, difficult choices, moments when the man he was would test the woman I wanted to be. But there would also be this, the connection that had formed between us in fire and fear, but which promised something deeper. Understanding, acceptance, perhaps even love. As dawn broke over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose beyond the penthouse windows, Luca pulled me gently into his arms. I went willingly, resting my head against his uninjured side, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady beneath my cheek. Whatever came next,